Hello and welcome to Matchday Live on LCFC Radio as the Foxes host the Hammers in the Premier League.
It's an absolute screamer!
It's been only 25 days since Leicester beat West Ham at the London Stadium in December.
It's into the net and Leicester City have the lead for a second time to Mari Gray!
It's Leicester City against West Ham and you can hear it all right here on Matchday Live.
And Didi hits in! Saved by Kasper Schmeichel! Oh, what an absolute cracker from Harvey Barnes!
Your place for all the big moments. You're listening to Matchday Live on LCFC Radio.
And tonight's Leicester City team news sees two changes from Sunday's 2-1 defeat to Burnley. Yuri Tillemans and Ben Chilwell come back into the team, with Christian Fuchs and Dennis Pratt dropping out. Kasper Schmeichel is the goalkeeper. Ricardo, Johnny Evans, Kaglar Soyuncu and Ben Chilwell the back four. James Maddison, Yuri Tillemans and Nampalys Mendy, with Harvey Barnes, Jamie Vardy and Ayoze Perez up front. The bench for the Foxes: goalkeeper Danny Ward, James Justin, Wes Morgan, Damari Gray, the match winner the last time these two sides met, Mark Albrighton, Kelechi Iheanacho, and a place on the bench for the returning Wilfred Ndidi. One change for West Ham from a 1-1 draw at home to Everton. Arthur Masuaku comes in for Pablo Fornells. Darren Randolph is the goalkeeper in what looks like a 4-4-1-1. Pablo Zabaleta, Issa Diop, Angelo Ogbonna and Aaron Cresswell the back four. Robert Snodgrass, Declan Rice, Mark Noble and Arthur Masuaku the midfield, with Manuel Lanzini playing behind Sebastian Aller. The bench for the Hammers: goalkeeper David Martin, Winston Reid, Fabian Balbuena, Carlos Sanchez, Pablo Fornells, Ejan Ajeti and Michael Antonio.
Thank you very much, Chris. Yes, welcome to Matchday Live, welcome to LCFC Radio and welcome to King Power Stadium. It's very, very cold if you're listening in before you make your journey up for the game. Bring extra layers, bring scarves, bring gloves, because it's going to be a very cold one here inside Filbert Way. Matt, welcome along. You're
getting soft, Daniel. It's not that bad at all.
It seems to be moving down south, that's what it is, yeah.
I know, I normally feel the cold, but not too bad. A bit of misty fog in the air, isn't there? But perfect conditions, mate, for a game of football.
You've been away, haven't you? You've been in warmer climes.
Well, exactly.
So I thought even now it would be colder, wouldn't it?
Coming back, yeah, I've been over in Hong Kong, of all places. What a place that is, by the way, if anyone's ever fortunate enough to get out there, worth a sample. But the King Power is the place to be this evening.
It absolutely is, and Leicester looking to get back to winning ways. What are you thinking ahead of the game, Matt? Because obviously Sunday was so frustrating. Leicester were the better team, everyone's admitted that, but obviously it doesn't matter if you don't win the game, does it? So how important is it that they get back to winning ways today?
Well, they can take consolation from the fact that they were the better side. They weren't their best. I thought Burnley were decidedly average in truth, but they battled away. They hung in there and showed qualities that Leicester perhaps were lacking on the day, and they proved to be decisive. But Leicester tonight, it's not a do-or-die situation, is it? It's not absolutely imperative that Leicester get the win, but it's a Premier League game, and only 38 of them all season, so you've got to grasp what you can while you can, and I think Leicester will be determined to turn round recent fortunes, won't they? I think lost 4 out of 6, the last 6. It's not something that they'll be particularly proud of. There are reasons why that run has occurred, but they need to brush themselves down and get themselves back on track, don't they? And remind themselves as players, individuals, collectively, of what they are capable of, and not so long ago, and not just in flashes. They did it over quite a sustained period. They are a quality outfit. Perhaps they've just gone off the boil a little bit, in fairness, but there's no reason why they can't turn that round. And tonight is as good a chance as any, I suppose. West Ham, no mugs themselves, had an upturn in fortunes, and extra spirit about them since David Moyes has come in. More disciplined, more organised, without a doubt, and they've got their tails up a touch. But having said that, Leicester on a Wednesday night under the lights here at the King Power, got to fancy it.
Exactly. I mean, you look at it, the 4 defeats in 6 Premier League games for Leicester is only 1 fewer than in their first 27 league games under Brendan Rodgers, which I guess says 2 things, doesn't it, really? It firstly says how good he was in those first games, but then also that there is a little bit of a blip potentially that's happening at the moment. I think the 2 that happened over the Christmas period, you can understand, can't you? The Man City and the Liverpool games, the two best club sides in Europe, arguably. But it's the two against Southampton and Burnley that will be the most frustrating for Brendan Rodgers.
Yeah, and add to that the draw against Norwich. But it's part and parcel of dealing with a heavy fixture schedule, and everyone says it's a marathon, not a sprint, and that is the case. But it's it's an issue. It is a point of concern, but there's nothing to get too stressed about, I don't think. These tests are going to come along the way. Brendan Rodgers more than wily enough to understand that, and so I imagine other players. Norwich, yeah, it was a little bit scrappy. Norwich performed well on the day. And they've done so against better opposition than Leicester City this season. When they hit form, they can be a real tough opponent. Yeah, I'm thinking back to the Man City game, of course, albeit at Carrow Road. But yeah, listen, mildly disappointing. Well, more than that, really. The defeat, both of them against Southampton and Burnley. The latter more so because Leicester took the lead. Burnley got themselves back in it, and then the penalty turned up. There's a missed opportunity, but lay the blame solely on that. But they should have had enough to see that through, really. And I think it's the first time this season that Burnley have come back and won a game from a losing position, home or away. So you knew what was coming, but they couldn't actually deal with it, could they? Unfortunately, on the day. So I just get handed the team sheets here. My lovely Laura, thank you. Yeah, it was disappointing, but you look at it on the balance of play, they were the better side. And listen, at the start of the season, we can't keep saying it. I know, if you lose again tonight, and you keep saying, well, we're in a healthier position we probably envisaged at the start of the season. I know that's not the ultimate point, but it is, a reasonable factor to look at. And I think the players, I keep referring back to that. It's no good what we think, what the supporters think. Even Brendan Rodgers up to a point. We talked earlier about the players, how much faith they've got in their approach to the game, in their manager's belief, in his vision that he puts across to them. And they've got to genuinely believe it themselves and remind themselves how good they are and go and strut their stuff out there this evening.
Well, after that game with Burnley at Turf Moor, Harvey Barnes, the goal scorer, of course, for Leicester on Sunday, said despite the result, there were good moments in the game.
You've got to take some positives from these games. Everyone in there will be disappointed. Of course they will, but I think, when we look back at the game, we'll see that we did play some good football. But, it's up to us. It's up to us to put the ball in the net and keep out the other end.
He's obviously said there, didn't he, Harvey Barnes, Matt, that yes, it was disappointing, yes, it was frustrating, but they can take the positives from the game, that they were comfortably the better team. They created a lot of chances. On another day, could have been 3-4 nil up at times, or 1-3-4 1 up, whatever it was, with Burnley scoring. But the keeper was in fantastic form, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, Pope was pretty impressive. You've got to be more clinical, and you got the feeling that they needed to be in that game, didn't you? Burnley huffing and puffing. Leicester didn't look. Well, in truth, they didn't look too concerned, too ruffled defensively, but you knew sooner or later that an opportunity was going to arise for Burnley, because they just put you under pressure, didn't they, without playing too much football. And you've got to be really stout and resolute, and you just got a feeling about Leicester that they weren't quite tight enough defensively. They needed to go and kill off the game, which obviously they weren't able to do, despite some tremendous opportunities. But Harvey's right in what he says. You can't sit there and be absolutely devastated and flabbergasted by the result, because then it really does cause a problem. You've got to be resilient as a professional footballer and look for those positives to take you through to the next game. Whether it's on an individual basis in how you're playing, if you're having a little bit of a rough time, but you've produced a couple of moments of quality, you go, well, there's a glimmer of hope for you there. Equally, as a team, as an outfit, as a whole, you can look at that and take consolation and say, oh, boys, we've let it slip there again. It's not just one of those days. You say, but we were the better team. We've got the quality. I mean, I can imagine Brendan Rodgers being fuming afterwards, saying, boys, come on. Privately, I need to say to you that how much we are better than Burnley, as a footballing outfit. But there's no good saying that, thinking that. You need to prove it by getting the results. And they let it slip a little bit, and you can't afford to do that. So they need to be ruthless with themselves, need to be honest with themselves, which I'm sure they are. They're a good bunch of lads, and get themselves out there, puff their chests out, and do what they've been practicing for the last 9 months or so, and they've been very effective in doing it.
I guess the positive that they take is, yes, the penalty miss was obviously frustrating from a Leicester point of view, but it's all ifs and buts. But if that goes in, Leicester win the game.
Yes, I don't think they were at their best. Earlier in the season, they go 2-1 ahead like that. I think without a doubt they win the game. They didn't look quite as convincing in terms of maintaining the advantage over a team unless it was extended, and then a third goal would have definitely seen Burnley off. But I think Burnley are one of those teams that keep going at you despite their record, their poor record about coming back from a disadvantage. But they keep battling away, don't they? You need to shake them off. Leicester weren't able to do that, and you thought, just had a feeling, didn't you, that something was going to happen, contrary to expectations, really, or certainly wishes, if they didn't finish that game off. And that was one of those instances. And then you look at it and say, well, we've got to learn from it, and that's one thing saying it, but the results will, or the proof will be in the pudding in terms of learning about it in subsequent performances, and we'll see how that turns out down the line.
Do you think we'll see a reaction immediately from kick-off even today?
You'd like to think so. I mean, he's largely stuck by the team on Saturday, hasn't he, with his selection. Chilwell in for Fuchs, yeah, you could see that. I thought Chilwell was arrested, omitted for probably 2 or 3 reasons last weekend, but again, you have to get on with things, and hopefully he'll be revitalised, re-energised. Fuchs was probably not at his best at the weekend, element of rustiness possibly, but he's stuck by and large with the same team. Dennis Pratt being swapped with Tielemans being favoured. Again, you can see that Pratt's it's not quite firing for him. I think he's a very competent player, don't get me wrong, more than competent, but he's not quite clicked. He hasn't really found a sort of niche for himself in the team. Tielemans needed maybe not a rocket, but a little bit of a reminder that he needs to just put that extra edge on his game. And there are 1 or 2 others that could quite easily have found themselves on the bench, but he's stuck with them, and it suggests that he doesn't think there was too much wrong with last weekend.
What do you expect from West Ham then? Contrary, we'll talk about them a lot more later. We'll hear from your mate Tony Cottee as well, talking about the Hammers.
Your mate, isn't he?
No, he's yours, mate.
I hear you call him mate when we're doing the radio, no?
No, that's TC.
Oh, right, okay. I get confused. You've got so many mates in this game, haven't you?
What do you expect then from West Ham?
What do I expect? I think they'll try and be solid, first and foremost, and it doesn't take a football guru to work that out, does he? He's trying to solidify their game, isn't he, David Moyes? That's what he's been brought in to do. Also develop a bit of spirit. They look like they've got a bit of fire in their bellies, and David Moyes has installed that almost instantaneously, hasn't he? And discipline, all the basics of the game that David Moyes brings, and has brought him success for the last majority, certainly relative success for the last majority of his managerial career. But West Ham has certainly reacted to him. Some of the players would have experienced his management style before. He did a more than reasonable job previously, and be looking to exceed that, won't he, on this time round? But listen, the Premier League players, you look at them, I thought that recruitment-wise it would be a bit of a problem for a bit of a mishmash. Said it last time when we were down at the London Stadium. They just sort of been thrown in together and hope for the best. And it didn't look like there was too much spark coming from the manager, Pellegrini. Not too much energy was being transferred to the players. But as we've seen numerous times this season already, with Southampton is probably the clearest example, but a lot can happen in a short space of time. Just you know, these people who are involved in the Premier League are talented people, talented at their industry that they're involved in, but they sometimes need inspiration, motivation, whatever that is, and a little bit of guidance and management can go a long way. And Southampton's one example. Norwich, from bottom of the league, came here and looked, you know, a more than decent outfit, didn't they? And you know, West Ham, well, I don't think they're going to go shooting up the league anytime soon. I think they're a pretty good bet for obtaining their, or achieving their objective, which is different to what it was at the start of the season, but it was imperative they didn't get sucked into the relegation zone, and I think that will not be the case come the end of the season under Moyes' guideship.
Well, it's only been 25 days since these sides met at the London Stadium, with the Foxes coming out on top that day.
Brighton swings one in from the left-hand side, just a bit too deep. Masuaku's nodded it down, though. Still have a chance for Leicester. Flighted towards the far post. Back inside. It's in! Leicester City have scored! Well, that came from nothing there. Everyone thought the ball was going to go out of play. And Kelechi Iheanacho has profited there at the post. And the goalkeeper, Fabianski, can only push it in. And Leicester City do have the lead. 6 minutes until half-time. And Iheanacho in the team and in the goals again. Leicester is trying to close out this first half now. We've got 60 seconds left of normal time. Anderson to the right side of Frederick, back to Felipe Anderson. Low ball in, chance for the equaliser, and West Ham United are level. Leicester weren't ahead for long, and it's been swept into the net from close range by Pablo Fornals for his first league goal right before half-time. And West Ham United equalise here from close range. Pablo Fornals ran into the box. He looked like he was unmarked there, had the time, had the space, and he swept it past the helpless Kasper Schmeichel. It's West Ham 1, Leicester 1. Hooks up towards Albrighton, who holds it near the halfway line. Can't lay the ball off though. Chowdhury can though, up to Osa Perez, and now Leicester come forward. There's been a foul there as Iheanacho is taken down, but Osa Perez is away, driving through the centre. He's still got meant to be. He slips it forward into the area. Real chance for another goal. It's into the net, and Leicester City have the lead for a second time. Damari Gray. What a finish that is from the Leicester City wide man. There was a foul in the build-up, but Leicester continued, and Damari Gray, who missed the penalty in the first half, makes amends in the second with the most comfortable of finishes. Great conviction from the Leicester City man. He guides it into the far corner, and the Foxes lead for a second time.
Your place for all the big moments. You're listening to Matchday Live on LCFC Radio.
Yeah, welcome back to Matchday Live here on LCFC Radio with me, Dan Bates, and Matt Elliott. While we're listening back to that 2-1 win at the London Stadium, on the monitors in front of us, Matt, they're practicing the VAR, aren't they? They're drawing lines on the pitch, and Darren Randolph's doing a goal kick now, and they're practicing it as if it's an offside, aren't they?
Well, I have to admit, I was looking elsewhere for a little while, Batesy, but it wasn't VAR I was trying to register, but they're, yeah, I mean, it's stopping at one frame and then another sort of, couple of cuts down the line, and the ball seems to be in contact with his foot on both occasions, so it's bringing sort of extra detail to the argument, isn't there? That, you know, when is the ball officially considered to be at the point of contact, if that's what it is, or is it at the point of departure from the foot/boot, or whatever part of the body is playing the ball forward to the player who's supposedly offside or not? I'm confusing myself here, but I think I'm making sense. I don't know. They need to, you know, if it is going to be an exact science, they need to prove categorically when that moment is, don't they? If the ruling allows it, and mainly if technology does allow. Otherwise, that's another angle that VAR has to be addressed.
Well, while we were looking either at the VAR or at something else earlier, we were hearing the highlights of that win at the London Stadium in December. Leicester obviously made a lot of changes that night, Matt. Still won the game. It was the last one, of course, under the tutelage of Manuel Pellegrini for West Ham. He was let go that evening. So can we learn anything from that game, do you think, heading into this one, or is it a completely different West Ham? And it will be a completely different Leicester too.
Well, you'll learn about individuals a little bit, but As individuals can have a poor game one week and an absolute stormer the next. And you know, look at the slight difference in personnel, isn't there? Anderson was playing, Fornals was playing, wasn't he? And Valbuena was in there, Noble was on the bench, so there were multiple changes from West Ham's point of view. And you know, they are a different proposition under Moyes, I would say, because it looked like he'd come to the end of his reign, hadn't he, Pellegrini? That's probably too grand a name to describe his time in situ at West Ham. It didn't really go to plan, and to be honest, it never really looked like it was going to, did it? I don't know why it seemed as if it was just another job for him. Maybe being a bit harsh, and it's easy to jump on or jump to that conclusion, but it seemed startlingly obvious, really, that the spirit was ebbing away out of West Ham, and grumblings on and off the pitch, and change was needed. A lot of people were advocating it a few weeks before, weren't they? And the change has had the desired effect to an extent, certainly in the short term. Yet to see whether that will remain the case over the course of the season. Personally, I think they will get themselves out of trouble when all is said and done. But it's certainly not the West Ham way of old, as the supporters would like to have you believe. They're going to come here and be resolute first and foremost, pick up on any scraps, set pieces probably with a big lad up front. But they've got some experience in there for sure. You know, and that's going to be key. Zabaleta, Snodgrass. Oh, David Connolly's back, ex-teammate. He's here regular these days, isn't he? Nice to see you, mate. And sorry, I'm getting distracted left, right and centre this evening, aren't I? But yeah, no, they've got some experience throughout that team, haven't they? And you know, a sprinkle of quality as well, as you'd expect from a Premier League team. But I think with the nous that they've got within the ranks, might just do the job for them come the end of the season.
From a Leicester point of view, they're looking back at that game. They'll be able to take the confidence from the fact that it was a much changed Leicester that went down there, dominated the game and won the game in the end. Yeah,
and I think that will be a factor to a point. But Leicester have got to go and make that an issue. They want to remind West Ham, even though there is quite a change in personnel, but they were all there to witness it. They were either involved on the pitch, on the bench, or one or two maybe in the stands. And they're to see how good that Leicester were with a changed outfit that day. And if Leicester come in with, let's say, 2 or 3 of the, in inverted commas, big boys back on the scene and take the game to West Ham, then there could be an element of putting the frighteners on them, because they'll be reminded of what Leicester are capable of, and perhaps what is coming their way. But I don't know. A different proposition tonight. I think Leicester will have the upper hand ultimately, but I expect a bit more resistance at least from West Ham this evening.
Well, let's hear from one of the men that scored in that win at the London Stadium. That is, of course, Kelechi Iheanacho. He says, though, it'll be a completely different game to the one that they had at the London Stadium in December.
Of course, around the Premier League, when there's a change of manager or something, you will see that different from the previous one, and it's always going to be difficult with a team that changed their manager or something. So it's always going to be a difficult one, and no game is easy in the Premier League. So every game is hard. So I think it's going to be a tough one.
Just as we heard from Kelechi Iheanacho there, he and the rest of the Leicester team coming out for their warm-ups here on the King Power Stadium pitch. The camera's trained itself there on Ben Chilwell, who's back in the squad and back in the starting 11 for Leicester City this evening. He's jogged on with Damari Gray. He was someone who got the other goal, of course, at the London Stadium in that win. And they're both on the bench this evening, but they're both players that are good to have on the bench and a good ability to turn to those if Leicester need a goal this evening. They've got Damari Gray, Iheanacho there. They've got other options too. They've got Mark Albrighton as well.
Yeah, I was just looking at Mark Albrighton there, and every time I see him, I've got a bit of sympathy for him, because you know, he's a top-class player, top-class professional, good lad as well. and he's been an excellent servant, hasn't he, to Leicester City over the last few years. Been there, seen it, done it, and he's. I have to think that he's slightly unfortunate not to get more game time. Really, perhaps he will down the line, but manager Brendan Rodgers keeps trying more youthful options, shall we say, and understandably so to an extent. But yeah, you're right. Quite an armoury there on the bench. They cover all angles, don't they? Where's Morgan? 36, by the way. Yesterday, wasn't it? That's crept up ridiculously quickly. I know he's an experienced campaign, but 36. Hats off to him. I mean, I packed in at 36, but I was a cart. Well, I wasn't the nimblest at the best of times, but by then, I was properly feeling the effect, shall we say. But he looks still pretty bright, doesn't he? For a big, strong, hulking lad as well. So they've got good cover on the bench. Wilfred Ndidi as well, that's encouraging. He must be structurally 100% fit, or nigh on, to be included at all. Good sign for the weekend stroke next week. But the two you mentioned, Demarai Gray, Iheanacho in particular has transformed his season a bit, hasn't he? I think he can consider himself slightly unlucky that he doesn't get more game time, certainly of late, because whenever he's come on, he's looked a different player to, I was going to say 6 months ago, but even maybe 6 weeks ago. But when he has played in the Carabao Cup, contributed with goals and decent play. But his touch looks sure, he looks strong, he looks fit, athletic, sharp. Technically, he looks like he's improved his game. Got a bit of consistency to his play and scoring a few goals as well, vital ones, and extra confidence that Brendan Rodgers will have in him these days. And it's as much as anything, it's down to the formation rather than anything Iheanacho's done wrong of late that he's not included in the starting lineup.
I'm surprised it's taken us 27 minutes to mention his name, but how huge is it for Leicester City that Wilfred Ndidi is on the bench for the Foxes this evening?
Big Wilf, yeah, he's an influence, isn't he? For sure. I think understated, perhaps from a national sense, in terms of the recognition that he gets. Yes, he's appreciated and gets noticed, but most of the writing's about Jamie Vardy and Maddison, isn't it? And to a lesser extent, the other players. Soyuncu has been getting his fair share of plaudits, rightly so. Kasper Schmeichel gets a mention in between, but indeed he just goes about his business. But when you watch them regularly, as we're fortunate enough to do so, you see the impact that he has. And I think that has been evident, without being too derogatory to people who've come in and replaced him. I think his influence has been exaggerated, or sorry, magnified, really, by...
With him not being in the team?
Yeah, I think so, because that's not even a criticism of the individuals who have come in and effectively played in his role. Hamza Chowdhury's done more than fine. Obviously a bit of a discrepancy in the week, which has cost him an inclusion in the squad at the weekend, seemingly. But Papa Mendy, who's coming from nowhere, and has performed admirably, I have to say. But at this moment in time, neither of them are Wilfred Ndidi, are they? He's such a big player for the other players. They pick up inspiration off him, and also he's intimidating for the opposition as well.
But as you say, though, it's less the players coming in and not being able to do the job. It's more how good a job Wilfred Ndidi does in that role.
Yeah, I think so. He's a young boy. Was he 23 now, is he? He's cracking on a bit, isn't he? But he's 22, 23 years old. He's been around, 2.5, 3 seasons now, 23 years, yeah. And he's just grown in stature, hasn't he? He's so rangy but powerful, covers the ground well. His understanding of the role he plays is exceptional for someone of such tender age, and he's a real presence out there.
Just over half an hour now to go until kick-off here at King Power Stadium. Both sets of players are out on the pitch warming up, so let's get a reminder of our starting 11s with our commentator, Chris Coles.
Couple of changes, Dan, from Sunday's 2-1 defeat to Burnley for Leicester. Yuri Tielemans back in the starting 11, as is Ben Chilwell. Christian Fuchs drops out, he's not in the squad. Dennis Pratt is on the bench. Kasper Schmeichel, the goalkeeper, Ricardo, Johnny Evans, Kaglar Soyuncu and Ben Chilwell make up the back four. James Maddison, Yuri Tielemans and Nampalys Mendy in front of them, with Harvey Barnes, Jose Perez and Jamie Vardy further forward. The bench for the Foxes, goalkeeper Danny Ward, James Justin, Wes Morgan, Damari Gray, Mark Albright and Kelechi Iheanacho, and Wilfred Ndidi returning on the bench. West Ham United, 17th in the Premier League after results largely went against them yesterday, make one change from a 1-1 draw at home to Everton on the weekend. Arthur Masuaku comes in for Pablo Fornells. 4-4-1-1 for David Moyes' side. Darren Randolph in goal, Pablo Zabaleta, Issa Diop, Angelo Ogbonna and Aaron Cresswell the back four. Robert Snodgrass, Declan Rice, Mark Noble and Arthur Masuaku the midfield. Manuel Lanzini plays behind record signing Sebastian Haller. The bench for the Hammers, their goalkeeper David Martin, Winston Reid, Fabian Balbuena, Carlos Sanchez, Pablo Fornells, Albion Ajeti and Michael Antonio.
Thanks very much, Chris. We've got plenty more to come on Matchday Live before kick-off at 7:30 here at King Power Stadium. We'll hear from Brendan Rodgers and David Moyes, as well as former City and West Ham striker Tony Cottee.
You're listening to LCFC Radio.
The number of people known to have died from China's new flu-like virus has risen from 9 to 17, increasing global fears about the spread of the infection. The risk to the UK is low, but the World Health Organization is meeting to decide whether to declare it an international emergency. Professor Devi Sridhar says the symptoms resemble a more severe version of a cold.
For example, having high fevers accompanied by difficulty breathing, and that's been one that's been reported quite frequently, breathlessness, coughing, and then turning into pneumonia, which is fluid in the lungs.
The UN is calling for an investigation into allegations Saudi Arabia's crown prince hacked the phone of Amazon's boss. It's claimed Jeff Bezos was targeted in 2018 using a file sent via Mohammed bin Salman's personal WhatsApp account. Mr. Bezos also owns the Washington Post newspaper. Middle East expert Fawaz Gerges says that's likely to be the reason.
The Washington Post was basically covering Saudi Arabia highly negatively. Jamal Khashoggi, who was killed in October 2018, was writing critical articles about the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman.
Saudi Arabia has called the claims absurd. Toyota and Honda have been forced to recall more than 6 million vehicles worldwide because of two different airbag problems. Safety regulators say it could affect as many as 12.3 million cars in the US. The government's promised the biggest cash boost for police in a decade. Funding will increase by £1.1 billion in the next year. Tributes have been paid to Terry Jones, who, along with his Monty Python co-stars, changed the face of British comedy. The 77-year-old died last night. Stephen Fry called him a wonderful talent, heart and mind. That's the latest. I'm Anna Bates.
The only place you can listen to every Leicester City match online. This is LCFC Radio.
Yes, welcome back to King Power Stadium. This is Matchday Live on LCFC Radio with me, Dan Bates. Matt Elliott sat alongside me this evening for co-commentary duty, and as we get nearer and nearer kick-off, there's quite a lot of people already inside King Power Stadium, Matt. Have you got a sense of the atmosphere? It's not a nervous one, really, too much, is it, yet? Obviously, the blip has affected the fans somewhat, but it's due to be a sellout this evening, and they're ready and hoping to see another good performance and 3 points.
Well, you'd like to think so, wouldn't you? Because there's not too much to be down about. Let's get real about it. OK, the defeats have come in a flurry, 4 out of the last 6 games. But over the course of the 23 games played now, losing 5, no mean feat by any stretch of the imagination, is it? So
6,
sorry, yeah, lost the 2 before that, didn't they? Sorry, yeah, losing 6. So, but yeah, even so, 3rd place, whatever, and there by some considerable margin as well, ahead of 5th place at least. So, you know, I don't really get it. Yes, I can see, understand a little bit of frustration maybe, because the standards have been raised, haven't they? Because this team has shown, not just a flash in the pan, what they are capable of over a reasonably sustained period of time. They've beat fellow Premier League opposition 9-0. Average teams don't do that. Average teams don't go on the run that they've done at stages in the season. For that to sort of subside, how it has of late, is a little bit of a worry in some people's eyes. Personally, I don't think you're anywhere near that stage yet. It's not like it's been a fluke and things have just come together in a semi-freakish nature. There's a structured quality about this team, and I think that will carry them a hell of a long way. We're yet to see how far, but it doesn't make sense for the crowd to get tense and transfer that, maybe, well, run the risk of transferring that to the team, because then things can happen in a negative sense. But Leicester, what are they, 11 points clear of 5th? Come on. Take that for what it is. Look at it, appreciate it, and then do your utmost as a supporter to go out there and back your team to the hilt, individuals and a team. Certain players are not playing at the top of their game. Now, while that's something to look at, I think it was the case even when Leicester were rampant. Some of the players weren't playing at the absolute maximum of the game, which I take as a good thing, because there's room for improvement. We said it even when they were in their full flow earlier part of the season. Players and the team as a whole had areas to develop, and that's certainly the case at the moment. But without doubt, the capability is there. We know, we've seen it happen pretty regularly. They're just out their stride a little bit at the moment, and harder to work, knuckle down, sooner or later it'll click back into place.
But as you said, though, 11 clear of 5th place Manchester United, who play against Burnley this evening, and also 5 clear of Chelsea, obviously with tonight's game in hand. So with a win there, that'll be 8 points clear of 4th place as well. Let's get the view now of a man who's played for both clubs. That's, of course, striker Tony Cottee. He says there'll be a big difference in the Hammers to what Leicester saw in December.
From West Ham's point of view, it was the last game under Pellegrini. He actually got sacked after the game. West Ham probably put in what you would say one of their worst performances of the season. Confidence was really low. So I don't think you can really compare, because both teams are going to be different. Leicester are going to be different in terms of personnel, and West Ham are certainly going to be different in terms of confidence, because although there won't be that many changes from the team that played at the London Stadium against Leicester, they certainly will be in better condition mentally. Yeah, obviously West Ham's biggest problems this season have been certainly in goal, where Fabianski's been injured, and defensively they've not been good at all, Dan. So I think Leicester can certainly look to exploit that. But where they do need to be careful is that West Ham have got some very, very good players going forward. In the midfield, 2 players that fans will be familiar with is Mark Noble and Declan Rice, 2 homegrown players who are in good form. And then up front they've got Sebastian Haller, who's a big, tall, 6'3" centre forward, who, given the service and given the time, he can cause problems. I think the main dangers will come from the ball players, the Lanzinis, the Andersons and the Fornals, and if he's fit, Mikel Antonio as well, who's a really good player. So, West Ham have certainly got lots going forward. It's just defensively where I worry about them, and the West Ham fans are concerned at the moment.
The only place you can listen to every Leicester City match online. This is LCFC Radio.
We've just seen David Moyes. He came out onto the pitch briefly here at King Power Stadium. He's now just gone back down the tunnel. Obviously, Tony Cottee there, he's been impressed since David Moyes' return to London Stadium. He said obviously something had to happen. The way that West Ham were going under Pellegrini, that change had to be made. In his opinion, it was, and he steadied the ship somewhat, hasn't he, Matt? And that's the main reason, I guess, why Tony's saying that tonight will be completely different to what we saw 25 days ago.
Yes, you would imagine so. You'd imagine so for sure. But while we're saying David Moyes had a positive impact, which he has, it's only a win, draw and a loss out of the last 3 since he's come into the into the fray after that resounding defeat by Leicester. How did they get on in the cup?
They beat Gillingham 2-0 away.
Yeah,
from
that's
home,
right. Of course,
which was a
they did,
potential banana skin, as they say.
Exactly.
Gillingham away.
Well, a month before, you wouldn't fancy them, would you? And that's an indication of what Moyes has brought. Yeah, a little bit of professionalism, a bit of steel maybe, a bit of discipline, and a bit of spirit. You know, those are the words that sort of spring to mind. They got done by Oxford, didn't they, in the Carabao Cup? 4-0. Yeah. What is that all about? I mean, that would send shockwaves to me if I was a board member or director.
That was actually when they were on a good little bit of form as well. They lost their opening game of the season 5-0 at home to Man City. Not the way you want to start a season, but after that they won 4 of their remaining 6, didn't lose in that point, then went to Oxford, lost 4-0, and look at the run after that game with Oxford there. They went draw, loss, draw, loss. So they had a horrendous run after that Oxford game. So I wonder if that was maybe a bit of a turning point in their season after starting quite well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming there were a few changes in that line. I haven't got it to hand. But whatever the personnel, that's humiliating, really, isn't it? You know, Oxford, decent outfit and all that, but come on. But I don't know, they've always got, you know, delusions of grandeur in some respect, haven't they, like West Ham, a little bit about themselves. Now, I'm not saying that in terms of tonight, I'm not dismissing them at all, but they seem to have these false expectations of where they should be, and a sort of sense of entitlement which doesn't always add up when you look at it from a balanced point of view, really. But you know, again, I go back to the recruitment as well. You know, a bit of a mishmash of players, individuals rather than a collective. Although I think that's why David Moyes has come in. He can bring that togetherness with him and you know, develop that and manufacture a sort of bit of unity within a little bit of a splintered squad.
They spent a lot of money, didn't they, on Allaire, who starts this evening. £45 million, I think it was. That's a lot of money, isn't it, to spend on someone who's not proven in the Premier League. We're just seeing him now in the warm-up, and he's dragged a shot wide. Probably not the way he wants his evening to go, is it? But that was a lot of money that Manuel Pellegrini spent on one player in the summer.
He scored goals, you know, before he came to West Ham, though, didn't he? But sometimes you want a little bit of more endurance in terms of pedigree, don't you? But these days, needs must, isn't it? He's a big physical specimen, isn't he? He's got the attributes in terms of physicality, but technically he looks a little bit short. Is that down to his lack of ability, or is it lack of service?
Confidence.
Exactly. You come to a new country, a new league, and a team that's struggling a little bit, and you find that you're the focal point. Really, expectations levelled onto you to go and produce the goods, but if you're not being provided with service first and foremost, you're going to struggle, and then other things kick into play, don't they? But he looked bereft of confidence without a doubt, didn't he? But scored himself a decent goal not so long ago at the London Stadium when they turned over
in that win over Bournemouth,
wasn't it?
David Moyes' first game in
I
charge.
think he got the third of 4, didn't he? There, good finish as well. He was quite undemonstrative in his celebration though as well, wouldn't it? You know, as if he thought, right, okay, I've done that, I need to do it more myself. I recognise that. Not going wild and jubilant celebrations, getting carried away. You know, he's still feeling the weight, isn't he? And he feels he's probably got a bit to prove, but he needs some assistance, and West Ham be hoping he gets a bit more of that.
Well, let's hear from his manager then, David Moyes. He says that since he's come in, he's been delighted with his players' response during his second spell at the Hammers.
First of all, I've really enjoyed my it's been busy. Over sort of coming in just before New Year and the games I've got. It's still busy, but the biggest thing I'd say, the players have been brilliant. They've given me 100% in all the games. I think you see it in the Everton game. I think their commitment's been really, really good, every one of them. And I can only praise them for it, because they've knuckled down. You know, we've had to get them to give us something different, and I have to be fair, they've done a great job.
David Moyes there speaking, Matt, ahead of the game, and he spoke about the reaction that he's seen from the players since he came in. I mean, they must have been short of confidence the way they were playing. It was plain to see, wasn't it, at London Stadium on the 28th of December. So he says he's been delighted with the way that the players have responded to his methods and what he wants to put across.
Yeah, he'd expect nothing different though, wouldn't he, really? A manager of his experience, his reputation, he's been brought in to tighten things up, install that extra discipline in the team, give them a progressive way forward. And he's not going to take any prisoners, is he? You know, he's coming, he means business. He lay down the law to the players. They'll realise that, they'll know that before he gets there. Some of them have sampled his management, and you know, to an extent they know what to expect. They know how to behave and carry themselves. And quite frankly, if he was anything other than impressed by them in terms of attitude, then he'd really have a problem on his hands, wouldn't he? That's the minimum requirement. New manager comes in, everyone knuckles down if they've got, you know, any element of sense about them. It's after that initial upturn, that initial buzz, if you like, of a new manager coming in, that you see the qualities, or the true qualities, not just of the manager, but of the players. And that's why I'm a little bit sceptical of how big an impact Moyes is having. A win, drawn, a loss, and a win in the FA Cup doesn't sound too bad at all, does it? But it wasn't so long ago they were having a struggle.
Where do you see the danger coming from a West Ham point of view this evening? It looks like Lanzini will be just in behind Allaire, maybe three central defenders with wing backs.
I think it's highly likely, yeah. Looking at the pattern that West Ham have adopted, they played similar personnel to tonight, with a back three. Cresswell, ordinarily
he's not a centre half though, is he?
No, ordinarily recognised as a left back. That's what I'm saying. But there he is on the left hand side against Sheffield United, of a three in terms of centre half. It's something that Moyes, just on the patterns of his selection, home and away, is different emphasis. Sheffield United, where they were extremely unfortunate not to come away with a point, and we know Sheffield United's qualities, they played a back three, midfield four with wing backs, and then a front three as such, albeit a narrow one, and then reverted to a 4-4-1-1 on both occasions in the Premier League at home. Obviously it's an away fixture. You may well adopt the back three formation again.
Well, we heard from David Moyes there. We can hear from his opposite number then, Brendan Rodgers, ahead of the game this evening. He's been addressing the minor blips that the Foxes have been going through recently.
And just in terms of your overall form recently, results-wise, you've played a lot of games. You've got players in there who've played a lot. Can you put your form at all down to fatigue?
Listen, it happens with every team. You know, you go through a period of the season where you don't quite get the results that you would like. You have the last 6 games, I think we've won 2, so it's not, of course, the levels that we would want and what we've set. And now we understand that we'll be measured differently now because of how well the team have done. So, but I've got no doubt with these players. They're a wonderful group that want to get better, want to improve, and they know that to play for half a season isn't and wasn't the job. It's to continue with how we've been working, knowing that we've had a little blip, but a great opportunity now to get back on track tomorrow night. We played better at the weekend. We done well to lose the game, having been creating so many chances and whatnot. But it was also a demonstration that if you switch off, we had a key moment at the corner where we didn't do our job and we got punished for it. And then, of course, we didn't take our chances, and then we conceded a late goal. So that can happen, but I was much happier with the performance level.
Apologies for that at the beginning of that clip there, but we heard Brendan Rodgers there talking about, as we heard Harvey Barnes earlier, that he's was happy with the performance. Obviously, the result wasn't at all what they wanted, but the performance was better. And he also says that this blip or whatever it is down to him as a manager. He's the one that has to kind of front up and accept that as manager, that it's his fault almost. He's taking the spotlight almost away from his players, isn't he?
Yeah, up to a point, but everyone's got to take responsibility, haven't they? You don't shoulder the blame onto anyone else. Have a look at your own responsibilities and crack on with them and try and turn things around a little bit. But listen, it's far from a crisis, and there's so much to be positive about. And I think Brendan Rodgers is giving that message to his players. They're relatively young, a lot of them, and it wouldn't have taken too many knocks along the way. And you have to keep reminding yourself, listen, the situation Leicester are in. On the moment, the screen showing old footage, celebrating playoff finals, cup finals, Worthington Cup finals, Coca-Cola Cup finals, promotions, etc. Leicester City in the Champions League position now. Okay, we know they produced the ultimate performance, didn't they, when they won the league so dramatically, so fantastically those 4 seasons ago, 3.5 seasons ago now. But times have never really been better. I don't think, there's a massive chance of sustainability at the top end of the Premier League. Not saying just the Champions League zone, but take stock of what is happening here. The club's making progress. It's in a stage of development, but it's developing at an extremely high level. Many good things coming Leicester supporters' way. Just help the team keep on track, and those successful periods will come sooner rather than later.
And that's the point, is that I know that perspective is a huge thing to take, isn't it, from this little minor blip and where Leicester are and where they may be expected to be at the start of the season. This run and real push towards Europe maybe wasn't in the blueprints for Brendan Rodgers and Leicester City this season. Maybe he was building towards it, but it's come maybe early. I don't know. It could have been in his plans when he came in and saw the squad. But as you said, it's all about the journey almost. Brendan Rodgers has talked a lot about the journey that he wants to make here at Leicester City, and obviously that has been accelerated this season.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think last year I thought it was a mini blessing, if I'm honest, that Leicester didn't get into the Europa League spot. I think it would have come a little bit early. Brendan Rodgers, I think, intimated towards that on occasion, very briefly anyway. But yeah, probably a little bit too soon. Did Leicester have the personnel to deal with that, or those complexities that arise when you are playing in Europe? Hopefully it's a problem that Leicester have got to overcome in the very near future, albeit maybe at an even higher level than they could possibly have foreseen. Okay, he's well ahead of time, isn't he, Brendan Rodgers? But that brings its own expectancy. Again, he's a very astute man and an astute manager. He'll recognise that and deal with it as he goes along accordingly, and help transfer that confidence to the players. But I think the message tonight is that in his team selection, that we thought there wasn't too much wrong. They weren't as dominant as they have been against the likes of Newcastle and a number of other fixtures earlier in the season, but they were the better side against Burnley. They're a classier outfit. 7 times out of 10 they win that game. He's
almost heading into the uncharted territory, isn't he, Brendan Rodgers? He could lose 3 league games in a row for the first time since November 2014 when he was at Liverpool. Obviously he's been used to success in pretty much every game at Celtic, so this little minor blip of losing a couple of games in a row will be ever so slightly alien to him. So it's about how he, I guess, as a manager reacts to it as well.
Yeah, well, I would imagine he reacts to it very positively and think, right, okay, rather than erring on the side of caution and thinking, looking at that record, he could possibly sit there and think, oh, right, I'm going to do my utmost not to lose this game because I don't want that blemish on the record. I don't want anyone pointing that out, 3 on the trot, oh, what's happening? He's used to success, he's used to winning football games, whatever club he's been at, certainly in recent times, and I imagine that he will transmit that to his players. And so, right, boys, you can always look at a game of football in at least 2 ways. And if you start getting a little bit sceptical and looking over your shoulder and worrying about that, worrying about this, then things do go downhill. Well, go out there, don't even let that enter your mind. Strike the opposite. Mention to the players, boys, win this, you're back in, you're 14 points clear of 5th. You could well be. We could be actually talking genuinely about the Champions League. There's a time in this season when he's going to start using that as a little bit of a carrot, an incentive to the players, and hopefully they're going to react to that. They've got to puff their chest out, as I mentioned earlier, get out there and strut their stuff, show what everyone knows they're capable of doing, because they've done it before many times. And that's the way I think they've got to approach it. The atmosphere's cranking up here, there's no excuses, get out there and do your stuff.
Well, let's hope they do respond. Kasper Schmeichel's ready to lead out the Foxes this evening. He's in the tunnel alongside Mark Noble, ready to lead the Hammers out. A reminder, if you're listening in on social media, the feeds will stop just before kick-off. All you need to do is head to lcfc.com/radio to listen to full match coverage, available for free. But it's time now to hand you over to your commentary team of Matt Elliott and Chris Coles.
Madison, oh, that is absolutely brilliant! And it's a beauty. Jamie Vardy again for Leicester City. He's up and running. What a fantastic goal!
Touch, back of the net.
Come on. There's a somersault to celebrate with the travelling Blue Army.
All the games, all the goals, and all the big moments. You're listening to LCFC Radio.
Well, just 25 days have passed since these two met at the London Stadium, but a lot has happened since Leicester's win in the capital. West Ham wasted no time in sacking Manuel Pellegrini just hours after Damari Gray's winner, placing their trust in David Moyes with the hope he's not lost his survival instincts, which served the Hammers so well last time around. Leicester's top 4 resolve has been tested recently, 4 defeats in the last 6 Premier League matches, but the Foxes remain safely ensconced in the Champions League qualification places, and reaching Europe's top table for the 2nd time in their history remains eminently possible. Leicester make 2 changes from a 2-1 defeat to Burnley. Yuri Tillemans and Ben Chilwell come back into the team. Christian Fuchs and Dennis Pratt dropping out. Kasper Schmeichel, the goalkeeper, a back 4 of Ricardo, Johnny Evans, Kaglar Soyuncu and Ben Chilwell. James Maddison, Yuri Tillemans and Nampalys Mendy behind Harvey Barnes, Ayoze Perez and Jamie Vardy. West Ham make 1 change from a 1-1 draw at home to Everton. Arthur Masuaku comes in for Pablo Fornells. 4-4-1-1 with Darren Randolph in goal. Pablo Zabaleta, Issa Diop, Angelo Ogbonna and Aaron Cresswell the back 4. Robert Snodgrass, Declan Rice, Mark Noble and Arthur Masuaku. Manuel Lanzini playing behind Sebastian Haller. Alongside me, former Leicester City captain Matt Elliott. Matt, Brendan Rodgers called on the fans to get behind the team, and whilst it's a big game, of course it is, they're all big games, this one does have importance attached to it because of the recent run.
Yeah, to an extent, without a doubt. I think it's good timing to ask the supporters to help rally the troops. I think the supporters will react to that, as hopefully in turn will the players. Yeah, it's not an air of despondency, but there's been a little bit of negativity, losing 4 out of 6, particularly in the last couple of results. Last Sunday was frustrating, and Leicester had the upper hand and let it slip. I think people are just slightly concerned that such a wonderful first half of the season could go awry to an extent. But personally, I think Leicester have got too much quality for that to happen. There is a depth in the squad. Yes, certain players are integral, but that's the case in any team in the Premier League, bar 1 or 2. And to be honest, even the best teams need their star performers on song. And Leicester just had a little bit of a dip, to say the least. They sort of plateaued out a little bit, haven't they? But they seem ready to rock and roll tonight. Certainly the supporters are.
Yeah.